Classification of life based on complexity. Introduction. Life exists in diverse forms, spanning biological, digital, and potential alternative substrates. This classification system provides a framework to categorize and analyze various types of life, enabling us to explore their complexity and capabilities. Each type builds upon the previous one, extending and expanding upon its characteristics. By organizing life into distinct types, we can observe the progression of complexity and functionality from simpler forms to more advanced entities. It is important to note that this classification system applies to both biological and digital life, allowing us to compare and understand different substrates based on their capabilities and characteristics. Type 0. Pre-life. Definition. Type 0 represents pre-life entities that exhibit coherent data streams that can be reproduced. They lack the fundamental characteristics of life but possess the potential for further development. Biological example. Examples in the biological substrate include viruses or RNA sequences, which contain genetic material but require a host cell to reproduce. Digital example. In the digital substrate, any data file, such as images, audio, or text, that can be reproduced and shared falls under Type 0. Type 1. Basic machinery. Definition. Type 1 life forms exhibit basic machinery, operating through automatic and reactionary processes. They lack active control over their environment and primarily respond to external stimuli. Biological example. Bacteria serve as examples in the biological substrate. They possess basic machinery necessary for survival, such as genetic material, cellular structures, and metabolic processes. Digital example. Type 1 digital life forms are represented by simple data modification programs, such as Linux stream modifying apps. These programs follow predefined rules or algorithms to modify data streams. Characteristics. Automatic and reactionary processes. Lack of active control. Basic functionality. Type 2. Sensory machinery and reactionary mechanisms. Definition. Type 2 extends Type 1 by incorporating sensory machinery and reactionary mechanisms to accomplish tasks in a deliberate way. They exhibit more complex behaviors and interactions with their environment. Biological examples. Type 2 includes plants, fungi, protozoa and other eukaryotic life forms. Plants can follow the sun, exhibit growth responses, and respond to stimuli such as touch or gravity. Fungi, like mushrooms or molds, as well as protozoa, also exhibit basic mechanisms for movement or growth in response to environmental cues. Digital example. Computer operating systems can be considered Type 2 in the digital substrate. They incorporate sensory input from devices like keyboards, mice, webcams, and microphones to interact with users and respond to their commands. Characteristics. Sensory machinery for perception. Deliberate and purposeful actions. Reactive interactions with the environment. Type 3. Basic decision-making. Definition. Type 3 entities possess basic decision-making capabilities and act in a more deliberate and intentional manner. They can exhibit instinctual behaviors or follow programmed sequences of tasks. Biological example. In the biological substrate, simple animals like insects continue to serve as examples for Type 3, as they display instinctual behaviors in response to stimuli. Digital example. AI assistants, such as Google Assistant, Siri, or Alexa, exemplify Type 3 in the digital substrate. They employ decision-making algorithms to interpret user commands and provide relevant responses. Characteristics. Basic decision-making abilities. Less passive and more intentional behavior. Instinctual responses or programmed sequences. Type 4. Basic planning and problem-solving. Definition. Type 4 extends Type 3 by including basic planning and problem-solving capabilities. Entities in this category can anticipate future events, strategize, and apply learned knowledge to overcome challenges. Biological example. More complex animals like mammals and birds fall under Type 4 in the biological substrate. They exhibit planning and problem-solving abilities to obtain food, build nests, or engage in complex social behaviors. Digital example. Chatbot-style artificial intelligence, such as ChatGPT, can be considered Type 4 in the digital substrate. They employ advanced natural language processing and can simulate conversations, providing more sophisticated responses. Characteristics. Basic planning and anticipation. Problem-solving abilities. Adaptation and learning from experience. Type 5. Sentience and long-term planning. Definition. Type 5 entities possess sentience and the capacity for long-term planning. They can exhibit self-awareness, possess memory, and make decisions based on long-term goals and objectives. Biological example. Higher primates, cetaceans, elephants, and other advanced mammals are examples of type 5 in the biological substrate. They demonstrate self-awareness and exhibit long-term planning behaviors. Digital example. Artificial General Intelligence (AGI) represents type 5 in the digital substrate. AGI systems possess human-like cognitive abilities, including reasoning, self-awareness, and long-term planning. Characteristics. Sentience and self-awareness. Long-term planning and goal-oriented behavior. Advanced cognitive abilities. Type 6. Abstract thought and simulation. Definition. Type 6 entities extend type 5 by encompassing abstract thought processes and the ability to internally simulate reality. They can engage in complex problem-solving, creativity, and advanced cognitive tasks. Biological example. Currently, the only example of type 6 in the biological substrate is humans. Humans possess the unique ability to engage in abstract thought, imagination, and simulate possible scenarios mentally. Digital example. Hypothetically, a type 6 digital entity could be a highly advanced artificial superintelligence capable of abstract reasoning, creativity, and simulating complex realities. Characteristics. Abstract thinking and imagination. Simulation of complex scenarios. Advanced cognitive and creative abilities. Remember, this classification system is extensible and open to future discoveries and potential life forms that may emerge in different substrates. It provides a framework for understanding the increasing complexity and capabilities of life, both biological and digital. Colonial types. Colonial types refer to life forms that exist in colonies or groups. There are 3 groups within this classification: centralized, distributed, and augmented. These groups can further be categorized as integrated or modular. Centralized colonies. Centralized colonies have a hierarchical structure, where there is a central control or decision-making entity within the colony. Integrated centralized example. Biological. A beehive is an example of a centralized colony in the biological substrate. It has a queen bee as the central control, and the worker bees follow her commands. Integrated centralized example. Digital. In a centralized computer network, a main server acts as the central control, managing and distributing resources to connected computers. Distributed colonies. Distributed colonies have a decentralized structure, where decision-making and control are distributed among the individuals in the colony. Modular distributed example. Biological. Coral reefs are an example of a distributed colony in the biological substrate. Each coral polyp contributes to the overall structure and survival of the reef. Modular distributed example. Digital. A peer-to-peer file sharing network, where computers connect directly with each other to share files without a central server, is an example of a distributed colony in the digital substrate. Augmented colonies. Augmented colonies involve the interaction of multiple substrates to create a single extended entity. These colonies can also be seen as symbiotic, where different organisms or entities rely on each other for mutual benefits. Augmented symbiotic example. Biological. The lichen is an example of an augmented colony in the biological substrate. It consists of a symbiotic relationship between a fungus and an alga, creating a new organism with unique properties. Augmented example. Digital. The Internet of Things (IoT) can be seen as an augmented colony in the digital substrate. It involves the integration of various devices, sensors, and systems to create a networked environment with enhanced capabilities. It's important to note that the colonial types are an extension of the previous classification system, adding an additional layer of complexity by considering the structure and interactions within colonies.